So just as in any other language, there's words in the English language that people mix up, meaning they use one word instead of the other. This can be because they sound similar or are spelled similarly, or they have a somewhat similar meaning. Either way, you can't, or rather, you shouldn't use one instead of the other. And in today's video, we'll talk about the words that people confuse mostly when speaking. Oh, and one more thing. It's not just non-native speakers who confuse these words. Okay, and we'll open our list with the among and between pair. So, the word among means surrounded by or in the middle of other things, being a member or members of a larger set of 3 or more people or things. And the word between means at or in the space separating 2 points, objects, or regions. They are very often confused, but let's take a look at one simple example that will help you sort these out. And the first one is, the blue pen is between 2 red pens. So here we have one object in the space separating 2 other objects. And the second one is, the blue pen is among other pens. So here we have one thing that is in the middle of other things, and there's more than 3 of those other things. The next pair is critic and critique. A critic is a person who judges, evaluates, and criticizes. An example sentence would be, he's a very famous movie critic. And critique means to give an opinion, a judgment, a detailed evaluation or review, especially a negative one, about person's ideas, a piece of work, book, movie, etc. So for example, he had no mercy in his critique. And very often people would say something like, your critic was absolutely unnecessary, when it's supposed to be, your critique was absolutely unnecessary. Let's move on to the pair number 3, which is assure and ensure. Assure means to tell someone confidently that something is true, especially so that they do not worry. And ensure means to make something certain to happen, to actually do something to be sure that something happens. They sound somewhat similar and their meanings are in the same area, so let's take a look at the examples. I can assure you that you won't regret buying this car. This sentence means that I'm really sure that this car is good and that I am certain that you will love it if you buy it. And the example number 2. After an unfortunate incident, the zoo administration strengthened and secured their cages to ensure the safety of their visitors. So they actually did something to make certain that their visitors are safe when they visit the zoo. The next one you don't want to confuse because it'll be either funny or it'll turn into a big misunderstanding. So there's a word hang, which has 2 meanings. The first one is to fasten something to some elevated point without support from below, with the lower part dangling free. And another one is kind of a dark one. It means to kill someone by dropping them with a rope around their neck. So this word might be confusing even if you use it in the present simple or present continuous tenses depending on the situation and context. And it's understandable, but it's the past forms of this word that confuse people because, as we all know, there's regular and irregular verbs in English. So to make a past tense of a regular verb, we add an ed ending to the verb. And irregular verbs, they have their own different past forms. In the case of this verb, if we add an ed ending to it and say hanged, it only can mean one thing, which is to kill someone by hanging. But if you don't mean that, and you're referring to the action of taking some object, attaching it to something, and putting it in such a way so that it dangles on that, then you should say hung. Because the 3 forms of the verb hang are hang, hung, hung. And the 3 forms of the verb hang with the other meaning are hang, hanged, hanged. This pair is the winner of the Confusing Word Pairs in English award. Lay and lie. Lie as a verb means to be in or move into a horizontal position on a surface, whereas lay means to put something in a especially flat or horizontal position, usually carefully or with a particular purpose. So to be grammatically correct, you would say, I'm lying in bed. But so many people also say, I'm laying in bed. And it's confusing because the past simple of lie is lay. But the past simple of lay, on the other hand, is laid. Beside and besides are on the second place of the most confused words. They are almost identical with the exception of one sound, so it is quite understandable why people confuse them. But their meanings are very different. So beside means next to, and besides means also, in addition to, or apart from. So now let's take a look at these two sentences. I would work with anyone besides him, and I would work with anyone beside him. So the first one means that you'd rather work with anyone but that person because either you don't get along with them or you don't like them. Whereas the second one, although it sounds kind of awkward, but it means that as long as he is by your side, on your team, you don't care who you work with. It means that you really like this person. So be careful not to confuse this one. So there you have it, guys. Now you hopefully won't confuse these. So if you liked the video and you learned something new, please give it a like. And if you're interested in this kind of content, subscribe if you haven't yet. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so that you don't miss any of our uploads. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.